Hi everyone, this is Mark Moikins from Big Mountain Studio, and we are continuing this totally unscripted prototyping session. In this video, we'll be modeling the data for the top portion of the screen. Once we have the model, we're going to populate it with some data, and then we're going to send it over to the view controller. The view controller is responsible for taking that data and populating all the labels on the UI. And then, of course, we'll be animating it to come in from the sides. If you haven't seen the previous videos in this series, I suggest you go watch them first, so when you start watching this one, you're not lost as far as what is going on. Now let's work on those two items up top where they animate in. So the first thing I want to do, let's take a look at this here. I want to create a model. Like realistically, let's just take a look here. This application, it looks like it's just kind of giving you what your schedule is for that day. It's giving you some information about your day. It tells you what day it is, tells you the full date, and it gives you a little bit of weather, and it tells you what's on your schedule, 8 a.m., 11 a.m., 2 p.m. So most likely he's getting this data from somewhere. And so what we'll do is we'll just create a model to hold this data, because it might be, maybe it's a service, a web service or something. And you know, this might be today's date right here, where we could just get this from, you know, the phone itself. But there might be options where they want to see, what does my schedule look like tomorrow or the following day? And then, you know, the weather will change for, you know, the forecast, like what's the weather going to be tomorrow? So that's why I'm not going to populate any of the data in the view controller. I'm actually going to populate it. Remember when we first created the project, we're kind of looking at the model. Well, this data class right here kind of simulates that it's getting the information from an outside data source. And I even have a comment up here too. I forgot about this. You know, you can modify this to go out, you know, to get it from web service or, you know, Firebase, or maybe even core data, you know, if that's what your app does. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually use this class, and we're going to create a function to get that, I don't know, what do we call it? Just day and weather. Get day and weather. Okay, so there's our basic function right there. And we'll most likely have it do it the same way that is happening up here. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, because we can use most of this. Except we're not going to return a model. We need to return something else. So let's create a model for day weather. I'm just going to create a new Swift file here and call it day weather model. There is an image, so we need to change this to UI kit. If there weren't any images, we could just leave it as foundation. But you know, UI image comes from UI kit. Okay, and you know what? I could probably even just use, I think like in the model, yeah, it's a class. You know, we don't even really need a class. Let me show you something here. We can use a struct instead. And I'm going to show you like one of the advantages of a struct. Whoa. I don't think my cursor was in the right place. Okay, so let's create a struct. And it's going to be, you know, same as our file name, day weather model. Whoops. Okay, and then we want our fields. And usually what I do, I like to spell things out explicitly. You know, I don't like to, you know, have a, like I'm not going to use a date object and then, you know, at runtime parse out the day name and the format, you know, format it the way I want. Because I want my model to do all that for me. I want the data ready and presentable by the time the view controller gets it. I don't want the view controller to manipulate and have to do all that work. So I usually have everything ready in the model layer. And I don't know if that's right or not. That's just one of my preferences. I don't think it adds more maintenance or more time programming. Maybe it does in the future, but I don't know. It's kind of worked for me, so I just keep doing it. I guess it's a debatable point. Okay, so what we need is a day name, and that's going to be that, like that word Monday up there, and that's going to be a string. And what do we also have? Let me take another look at it here. So we have the actual date long date. We'll call it a long date. We have a city, we have a temperature, and we have an image. Long date. And by the time it gets to the view controller, it'll be a string that we can just easily display. And then we have the weather icon. And this is going to be a UI image. And it is nillable. It can be nil. Then we'll have, what else did I have here? Temperature and city. Temperature, string, and a city string. Okay, that's it. That's our whole thing. Now notice, I want to show you something here. Notice in this class it has an init. So that's how I, if I have an array of information, I initialize that class like this. So I create a model and I pass in all the values that it needs to populate that class. Well, the struct is a little bit different. Oh, you know what? Another thing. Hold on, let me just set this up. So we're not returning an array. We're just going to return one object. We're just going to return a day weather model. And when we get the data, we don't even really need to do this. But I'll do it anyway. Yeah, this will be good. Okay, I can just delete this line. I don't really need that. And we'll just initialize our day weather model here. Whoa. Day weather model. Okay, look what happens. Now remember, on the model I created an init function, an initializer or a constructor. But in the day weather I did not do that. But if you take a look, it actually has a constructor for all of your items. So it's pretty handy. It takes care of all that for us. Oh, that's weird. There's some items missing. Maybe it doesn't work as good as I thought. Look, we only get day name, long date, and weather icon. We're missing the city and the temperature. Why would it do that? Okay, hold on here. This is going to complain too. Let me build it just to make sure it builds. And let's look at the day weather. Nothing looks out of the ordinary. It stops right on the weather. I wonder, because this is optional. Okay, let's do this. Let's move our optionals down to the end. There we go. And I have a theory. I think I know what's going to happen with a struct. When you have optionals in a function, you usually you can put them at the end and give it like a default value. And I'm thinking with that from a different language, not from Swift, but I'm kind of suspecting that might be the same case. But let's check it out. This is real life, this is me experimenting. Okay, yeah, it is. There we go. So it looks like in some other languages are like this. If you have something that's optional, because we put a question mark on it, like we might not have a value for it, just stick it on the end and it'll automatically create your constructor for you or your initializer for you. So that's one of the cool things about structs. The difference between structs and classes is, again, you notice there's no constructor here. I didn't create an init function like this class did. This class needs an init function, or it doesn't need it, but if you want one, you have to create it. But the struct, you don't. The struct, it'll come for free. So that is one advantage of using structs. Okay, day name, and I'm just going to, well, I guess I could just use the data that's in here. Monday, February 8th, 2015. Okay, temperature, what did it say? 58 degrees, San Francisco. Degrees, I think that is something like Option Shift 8. Yeah, Option Shift 8 will give you the degree symbol. Oh, that's a string, isn't it? Let's get that into a string. There we go. City, San Francisco. Whoops. and the weather icon. We could create a weather icon, I guess. What is it? It's a sun? Yeah, let's do what I did in the last video where I went to the noun project and we'll just look for something there. Noun projects is great. I totally love, whoever created this idea was a genius. Yeah, there's a ton of nice looking sun icons here. It was hollow, right? Whoops. Yeah, hollow icon. All right, we'll just we'll use this one right here. So here we're getting this sun icon courtesy of Iconsphere again. Remember, we used them for one of our icons before. Thanks, Iconsphere. You got a lot of good stuff. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing we did with it last time. I think we still have our our sketch project open. Yeah, we do. Okay, so what I really need is just this icon right here. So if I drill down and find the group, get the shape, I'm just going to highlight that shape and copy it. Again, it gives the who was created by right here, Iconsphere from the noun project. Thank you. And let's go back to, this is our sketch file for our icons that we've used so far. And let me look at that mock-up one last time. So that sun icon, yeah, it looks like it's about the same size as these other icons, right? So let's keep doing the same thing. We have a 44 by 44 canvas size, so that's going to be the size of our image, but the image inside of it is actually 33 by 33. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit A for artboard, and I'm going to come down here and create a 44 by 44. Now, of course, that's not 44 by 44, right? But I'm just going to fix it up here. Okay. And this will be, we'll just call it sun. Okay, I'm going to paste it in there. It's huge, or it's not huge, but it's bigger. So I'm going to come up to the scale, and I'm going to change the largest value to 44. Perfect. Yeah. And make sure it's centered. Okay, good. Oh, no, I made a mistake. We want to scale it to actually 33 by 33. There we go. And let's make sure that is centered. Good. And then we're going to export it. We have our two sizes, our 2x and 3x. Sketch provides that for us automatically. Thank you, Sketch. We'll just export it right to the desktop. Okay, good. We'll save this. And we can close this. We don't need this anymore. Let's delete that. We don't need this anymore. Let's close that. Okay, and let's grab our two icons here. Actually, let's go to our assets, open that up. And then let's grab our two icons here. Drag them in. And what do we have to do to change the color? Yeah, you guys are probably getting this by now, huh? Template image. All right, cool. So we have our icon there. Now, what I'm going to do, so it's called sun. Let's go back to our data, and where I initialize it here, this image, I'm just going to use sun. And what this is right here, this is the actual image itself. I'm using an image literal. So that's kind of cool. It comes up in your autocomplete. So it's hard to see because it's black on black, but there you go. That's the actual icon. So that's cool. If you want to change it using a image literal here, you can double click. Yeah, there you go. Oops. It's just slow. And then you can change the image. But we're going to stick with the sun. All right, good. So we have our data here, and we need to return it. And it should be returned right there. Awesome. Okay, so now that, and again, the only reason why I'm doing this is because if you ever want to take this prototype to the next step, it's kind of set up for you. It's ready to be filled in with real code. And what you do is you'd basically just delete this, and this is where you would put your call to your data source, wherever you're getting the data from. Maybe you get JSON back, you parse the JSON, and then you populate this data model. And so all this functionality and code is totally separate from your view controller. So if you ever want to make this real app, you don't even have to touch your view controller. All you have to do is just update these two functions here, and you'll be getting real data. So it minimizes the amount of change you have to do in the future. But it totally could be a waste of time, right? Because you might not ever use this, and it might just be strictly a prototype. So it's up to you which way you want to go. Sometimes, I do all the data fetching right in the view controller just because it's a quick prototype, and I know it's never going to be an application. But I think it's kind of like a good practice to get into, even for your prototypes, to build out your model and build out your data class, especially if I'm giving you this as a template project, because it builds out a lot of it for you, and you just have to modify some pieces here and there. Okay, so let's go back to our view controller. And now you can see this is where I get the data for the table view. So I'm going to do something similar. I need a variable for my day weather information. Day weather data, I'll just call it day weather data. And it's just going to be a type of day weather model. And we'll say, we'll say it's optional. I'm kind of tempted, because I know I'm populating it, I'm kind of tempted to just use an exclamation point like that, but we don't know. If you do, again, if you take this, if you change this to be a real application, you don't want an exclamation point, because what if you try to access your data source and you can't, and you won't get any information? Then when you try to read from this variable to populate something, you'll throw an exception because it's nil. Okay, so let's do data and get day and weather, and when it completes, it'll have our data. And again, this is, I have another video that explains how these completion handlers work. So really, this is just, it's passing in a type. Like, you could do this, you could explicitly say, oh yeah, this is the day weather model. And if that makes it easier for you to help you remember what type this is, another way that you can do it is if you hold down your option button and you click on this, you can see that it has a type right here. So it'll tell you what the type is, day weather model. But when but it's optional, right? You don't need to do that. It's just, if it makes it easier for you, then go ahead and do that. So what we want to do is, this is optional. We might not get any information back. Now notice this up here, I'm actually initializing it with a blank array. So it's going to have a value, and it's not going to cause any problems. If there's no data comes back here, and we run reload on it with nothing in this table data variable, it's not going to break anything. It's not going to cause any problems. But it will cause a problem if this data comes back nil. If it comes back nil, there's there's no data available, then it will cause a problem if we try to read from it. So what we need to do is we could just do like an if let. That's one thing that we can do. And we'll say if let, and usually I just use the same variable name. If data equals data, then that means we have information. If it makes it this far, it means we have information. Otherwise, it's just going to exit out gracefully and nothing will happen. Okay, so if we get data, then, well, we don't have any variables right now, but what we'll do next is we'll read all the information from this, and then we will populate it. It's giving me an error. What is this? Initializer for a conditional binding must have optional type, not day weather model. What? Oh, this, okay. Let's go back here. I'm going to hold down command and then click on get day weather. So this right here isn't optional. So basically, yeah, let's make it optional. And then we'll populate it. And this, is it saying this could be a let? Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Let's go back here. All right. Now what we need to do, we don't have any labels to populate from this data, so let's add that. Okay, let's take another look at it here. See what we got. Okay, so this looks like the same font size. This is the same font size. And they're both animating in from the sides. All right, I think we can do that. Now here's what I'm going to do. Let's expand this. Let's get our labels. Okay, I'm just going to do one side first, like this. And I'll format these nicely, get them to the right font, the right color, and then once I have the right font and right color, then I'll copy them and put them over here. Because, again, I don't want to put all the labels on there and have to change them all, like at the same time. I want to make it look right first. So what I'll do is I'll actually use this data right here, Monday, February 8th. Like, it doesn't matter. Let's update that. This 2017. At least make it this year. Okay, we want to increase this size. But first, I don't like to increase the size until I set the font, because look what happens. Let's zoom in this a little bit. Say we increase the size. Wait for it to catch up here. All right. So we have it at set to 36, but then watch what happens. Oh, not this one. Yeah, we do want to change it to white, so let's do that. So if I come in here and I change it to a custom font, pow, size goes back down to 17. That drives me crazy, man. Come on, just keep the same font size, guys. I should submit a bug report for that feature request. So that's why I don't set the size first. I want to set the font first. And this is one of the tougher parts. When you're looking at this, you got to figure out like what font that is or get something close. I don't know. So this is what I do. Every Mac has this application called FontBook. And if you open it up, it gives you a visual representation of what these fonts look like. These are fonts that I have installed on my computer under user. But you can go to computer and look at all the fonts installed. But you got to be warned, because some of these you can't use because they're not English. So I can't use this font because I won't be able to tell what it says. I don't speak. I don't know. That kind of looks like Arabic. But so let's do this. So we can start here and we can look at the different fonts and see what looks good. And this is kind of like what I do too. I look at this and I try to find like a distinguishing font. Let's get the non-moving picture here. I try to find a distinguishing letter. Like the M's, for instance, the outside of the M's go straight up and down, as opposed to having an angle. And the D is a completely round circle for the D part. That's probably as much as I can distinguish right there. The Y comes at a 45-degree angle. Maybe that's probably more like, 55. So let's see if we can figure this out. My first thought I want to go with is, I thought I had it on here, Roboto, but I don't have the non-mono version. All right, that's fine. I'll show you how you can get it. You can go to Google has a great font directory. Google Fonts, there it is right there. And Roboto is actually the font that Android uses. So maybe because the guy who designed this did it in maybe if he did it in create that floating action button, which is kind of like material design, maybe he used Roboto, but I don't know. Let's test it here. Let's type in Monday. Doesn't quite look like that. Remember the O was a completely round circle, so it's not Roboto. This is a great tool. Like what we want is, we don't want a monospace, we don't want a display font. It's actually a sans serif font that we want, and it's not handwriting. So you could quickly look through these and see if just look at the D. Find a D with a round circle, see if we find one. And it's definitely not this one. This looks like a round circle. The A looks a little bit different, but let's look at the word Monday. Oh man, I keep misspelling that, don't I? That looks pretty close. All right, maybe we'll use this one if we can't find a better one. I love this font, by the way, Ubuntu. That's a cool looking font. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, see the M is it's angled, but it's still cool looking. You know, maybe he says what font he uses on the website. Let's go there and take a look. Sometimes these designers they'll tell you which one they use. Let's close that. No. It'd be really cool. You know, like they had this color palette. It'd be cool if they had a font palette where they can just type in the fonts that they used. Sometimes someone will ask them, what font are you using? This is the guy who created Anton. So, offhand, I don't see any comments from him saying what font he used. All right, that's fine. You know what? We'll just, maybe we'll go with the Ubuntu font. Let's go back in here, see if I have it installed. I don't on this computer. Let me just look at one more thing here. No, it's definitely not this font. All right, yeah. I'm going to do that. No, that's not it. Let's install that. Okay, so the way this works is, let's go back and find Ubuntu. You click this plus, it kind of like adds it to your shopping cart, so you can keep coming down here and adding a bunch of fonts. And then when you're finally ready to download them all, you can just click this button right here, download. All right, there it is. So let's just click that and open it. It has all the different weights. We could probably just go with regular right here. And to install it on your computer, all you have to do is double click it. And you click this install font. And this is one thing I noticed too. Like it should show up down here, Ubuntu, but sometimes you have to like click off and come back. And sometimes it still doesn't show that it's installed. But trust me, it is. Because I don't think we'll need these other ones. Because if you come back here and you try to install it again, it'll give you an error. See, it's like, oh, it already exists. So it does actually exist in here. Maybe you just have to quit it and open it back up. Yeah, you do. So it's right there. For now, I'm not going to bother installing the other fonts. Okay, but what we do need is we need to know the location of this font. Well, actually, we still have it over here. All right, let's quit font book. Yeah, we could just use this one. We need to drag this into our project. And I usually put that under resources again too. So let's just add that. You want to make sure you select the target, and let's copy it too. Okay. Now there's another step that and I haven't even tested this yet. Maybe you guys can attest to this. But you're supposed to go into your P list here and add that font explicitly. You have to mention it in there. But I never have. But I haven't published any apps to the App Store that use a custom font, that I added to my project. So I don't know if it's still that way. If someone can comment and let us know, then that would be awesome. So I'm just going to come here. I'm going to go to our new font, Ubuntu. There we go. I'm just going to change it like that. And then I can change the size. I don't know. Let's start with 34. Okay. Of course, that isn't. We need to expand this. So what I do, if you need to make this label wider or resize it, I just hit Command equals, and it resizes it to the font or to the text. But let's get this over on the margin here. No, actually, this doesn't even matter. I'm gonna show you why here. Okay, let's use a custom font for this one too. Yeah, we'll keep it at 17. And let's change that to white. Okay, now when I animate this, here's the thing. So I could create an animation sequence that animates both of these at the same time. But I don't want to do that. Instead, what I want to do is I want to just embed these in a view and just animate the view. So then it'll kind of save me on some code, just animating one thing instead of animating two things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to, you can't see it because I don't have it recording up there, but I'm going to click on the editor menu, embed in, and I'm going to embed it in a view. The view is white by default, so we have to change that to clear. Oops, clear mark, clear. There we go. And again, so this is kind of like grouping things, in your design program. So this is good. We'll just leave it like this. And actually, we can resize these so they stick to the edge of your view, like that. Just in case we'll have some longer data. Like probably the longest day is Wednesday. So let's test that. Wednesday, if I can spell it. Yeah, that'll work. And it actually goes right out the view. That's cool. The reason why it does that is because views by default they'll allow their subviews. This label is a subview of this view. They'll allow their views to be drawn outside of themselves. But if you want to change that, you'd have to click clip to bounds and see it cuts it off. But I think that's okay. Oops, hidden. No. Uncheck clip to bounds, and then it can be drawn outside. Okay, so that's fine. The next thing I want to do is let's put this right in the middle. Let's see, width 198. Yeah, let's just do that. Okay, and we need to set up some constraints for this. I'm gonna leave it like this, so it stays proportionately like 20% down the view, down the screen here. And for this label, I need that to be able to stretch out for larger views. Same with this. Just stretch out. All right, that should be good. And let me just double check this view. Yeah, we need this to be able to stretch out as well. So as the view gets bigger, this should stretch out with it. And we just let's take a look here. Yeah, see how this is still like 50% and it came out a little bit more? And this is still 50% and it came in. Okay, so that's exactly what we want. We want to resize for the different size devices. All right. Okay, that's fine. Now we need to do the other side too. So this looks good. Let me just copy this and stick it over here like that. And I'm going to change this constraint so it's this way. I need to look at that mock-up again. Yeah, it is more over just on the side there. Okay, that's cool. You might have to decrease this font size. 58. Was it option? No. Shift option 8. Yeah, there we go. Okay, we want this label here to be over here. Yeah, that's fine. We just have to make sure it's right justified. This needs to be right justified. And this is the city, right? Yeah, San Francisco. San Francisco. All right, good. So that looks good. And then we just need the icon, right? So let's go to our media library and see if we can find it in here. Sun, there it is. Let's stick that in there. Does that look about right? Yeah, that looks, he's got it more like justified here. So this view itself can be shorter. I knew I was going to do that. Yeah, right about there is fine. Where's my label? I have to come down here and select it. Lost it again. Oh no, what's going on? Undo, undo. There we go. right there. I'm just resizing this to fit the container here. All right, that looks good. That looks good. And this, yeah, we'll keep it like that. All right, no, yeah. Let's move this in a little bit. A little bit more. Right there. All right, good. And the tint on this will need to be white. Ah, man, this is such a pain. I'm going to show you why, this is such a pain. So we want to make the tint white. But look at this. So unlike a button, right, you can just change the tint, and this should be white when we run it, but watch what happens. It's black. It's still black. Why? Why? Why can't you do that? I've actually submitted a bug to Apple for this. Basically, I think what's happening is it can only set the tint when it draws the image. And here, because the image is already on the view, it's already drawn. So when it runs the application, it doesn't apply the tint. So what we have to do is basically we just have to delete this. And then we'll populate it when we get the data from the model, which is totally fine. I mean, that's the way it's going to work anyway. All right, let's... yeah, this is at a good point. We need to create some outlets now. So let's open up our assistant editor and create a bunch of outlets. Okay, first we need to move these views. And I'm just going to keep it real simple here. I'll call this the day view. And I'll call this one, we'll just call it the weather view. Okay. And now once we have those names, now we can animate it. Let's animate it first, and then we'll populate it after. Okay, so it's when the view loads. But more than that, when this view loads, like I'm just guessing how this application is going to work. I'm guessing they might come into this view when, through this menu up here, or they could be coming from a different place. And when it loads, the load is only going to happen one time. And so it'll only animate the first time they come in here. But maybe, when they click on one of these icons, it brings up another view. And then when they come back, you want it to animate again. Maybe not. If you don't want it to animate again, if you only want it to animate one time, then put it in the view did load. If you want it to animate every time you come back to this screen, or every time you show this screen, every time the screen appears, then you want to put it in view did appear. And we'll do that because I don't think it really matters. Let's go back to the full screen mode here for our code. Okay, so we're adding a view did appear. And we want to call its super view did appear and pass in this parameter right here into this parameter. The reason why you do that is because we're overriding view did appear, meaning we're adding our own custom code. And what we're telling it to do is we're saying, okay, you can run any existing code that you might have in there in your base class, for the UI view controller. You can run your own code, but in addition to running your own code, when you call super the view did appear, you want to run my code afterwards. So that's basically what's happening. All right, so now let's take a look at that animation again. Can you figure out just by looking at this what animation they're using? Let's look at it again. Okay, now notice this one thing. I mean, there's really like two kind of animations, right? There's a spring animation, and then it's just everything else. So this isn't springing. It doesn't look like it's springing. I can't even tell. It's so fast. I think it's springing just a little tiny bit. Like there's a lot of damping on there. So let's just use that. UI view dot animate. And it's on this is the last one we use, so it's still there, the one that says physical spring. Okay, duration, we'll use 0.3. That's the default. I always start with 0.3, and then I run it and see how it looks, and then I'll adjust that duration afterwards. For the delay, when the screen opens, let's delay it just a little bit, like maybe just 0.3 seconds. And for the spring, there's not a lot of bounce to it, so we want to get it close to 1. If it's a 1, there's no spring at all. So let's bump it up to maybe like an 8. That even might be too much, but we'll take a look because it's very subtle in the mockup. Okay, initial spring velocity, we'll keep it at 0. Options, no options for now. Animations. Okay, so here we're going to, so the technique, remember the technique, what I told you before, where everything you see on the storyboard right now is in its destination as far as the animation goes. That's the destination of the animation. So we need to wind up everything and put everything into its start position when the view loads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let's create a function to do that, to wind up everything, or I'll just say, let me check something here. No, we can't use close menu because we use it here too. All right, that's fine. We'll create another function and we'll call it like let's call it like setup animated elements, animated controls. Yeah, we'll just call it that. This is a common practice that I use. It's kind of a habit from other development environments. I create the function, even though it doesn't exist, I call the function first. In other development environments, it usually gives you the option like, hey, do you want to create this function? We'll create it for you. I'm like, yeah, create it for me. But unfortunately, Xcode doesn't do that. Maybe, WWDC 2017 is coming up, so maybe it will be available in this next version. Maybe they'll announce it. Okay, my functions are down here, so I kind of like to group my functions together as opposed to my outlets and overrides and actions. Okay. And then here, what we're going to do is we have, what did I call it? Like left and right? Left view? No. I called it weather and day. Day view, there it is. Okay, and we're going to want to do the same thing. We're going to transform it. I always use transform because when we animate it, all we have to do is set identity to the transform, and it goes back in place. CGFine transform. And we're going to do a translation on it, which is basically reposition, changing the position of. And we're going to change the X. So what do we change the X to? Well, if we move the day view off to the left, off the screen, then we only need to move it off the width of itself, right? And it's going to be a negative, so we can just say day view dot frame dot width. Yeah. And we're not moving it up and down, so we'll just keep that as 0. And with the weather view, we're going to kind of do the same thing, but in the opposite direction. We're going to use the translation, which is the repositioning. And this time, it's not going to be negative. We're going to add to its X position, so it pushes it off to the right. And we're not going to move it up and down, so we'll keep 0 for the Y position. Okay, now we want to animate it, and it's going to be right here. And you know what we're going to do here? The day view. Yeah, we're just going to set the transform back to the identity, and it'll animate it and bounce it back into its destination. There we go. Do we want anything to happen afterwards? Let me look at the animation again. Yeah. Okay, this is what I was thinking. It looks like this animation happens first, and then this animation happens afterwards. Or maybe it happens, it's delayed. This definitely happens after this one. But let's do it. Let's just do this. We'll keep the completion handler in there. But we'll just keep it blank. We won't populate it with anything. All right, let's run this and see how it looks. Now there's a slight delay, so it won't animate it right away. Yeah, it's really fast. Let's do this. Let's delay it just a little bit more, and let's increase this duration to 0.5 maybe. Yeah, you definitely see it more that way. There's an option on your simulator too to slow down animations if you really want to look at something. So we could have done that too. All right, guys. This video is going on pretty long. I said I wanted to populate this data, and I still do. Yeah, let's just do it real quick. It shouldn't be too long. And again, if you're watching this video, change the speed to 2x to speed it up, because my videos tend to go kind of long. I'm really detailed and I explain everything that's happening because I don't want you guys to get lost. So let's go into our view and go into the main storyboard and open up the assistant editor. We need some outlets here. Okay, we want to call this the day label. I'll call this the date label. And we need an icon. This is the, I'll just call it the weather image view. Temperature label. And the city label. Okay, there we go. And then let's populate them. So when we get data back here, if we get data back, we want to say self.day label equals data.day name, self.date label equals data. Long date. I called it long date. Whoa. Oh, data.longdate. See, this is that darn IntelliSense. And not IntelliSense. Autocomplete. There. So, okay, so we got the okay, and then we have the weather image view dot image equals data dot weather icon, and then we have the temperature label dot text. Oh, geez, what am I doing? I just realized I wasn't using the dot text property. Temperature. Yeah, we need definitely need dot text property here. Okay, and one more. That's the city. City label dot text equals data dot city. All right, that should do it. Let's check it out. It's hard to tell if it actually worked, because yeah, it actually did work, because I made this date 2017. I made all the other data the same. And notice the icon now, it's white. It's because we loaded it instead of having it preloaded when we created the storyboard. So now it'll actually use the tint color to color it. All right, guys, that's it for this video. I know it ran kind of long. Like all my videos, feel free to put them on 2x to speed through this stuff, but I try to give information and tips as I go through the video to hopefully make sure you guys aren't lost. I try to make it as detailed and as knowledgeable as possible so you guys can follow along and easily understand. I hope you guys are following along and building this with me. I think it'd be a great learning experience. And again, I didn't prepare any of this. I didn't create this project ahead of time. I'm doing this live. So thank you for watching, and thank you for your patience. In the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to add that final piece right here, this UI view. This table view, and we're going to animate it so it comes in. Each row comes in by itself, one after the other, from the right. All right, guys, this is going to be a fun one because I'm going to be doing a couple of different things, and you're definitely going to learn a lot. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.